welcome to episode 18 of the Boot Nerds podcast. Jay, is that correct?
18.
It is 18.
18.
Okay, we're good.
And it only took you 18 episodes to get proper sound.
The sound,
Congratulations.
pending some kind of an complete and epic failure, my audio should be pretty good.
We have said this before, though, mind.
Yeah.
So fingers crossed, but also congratulations to the guys out there, because now both mine and Josh's voice is going to be awesome to listen to. Well, Josh's mainly, but
yeah, it's going to be great. I sound pretty incredible. I'm hoping.
yeah. At least it's not the mic's fault. But anyways, episode 18. We're glad to be back now with awesome sound quality all over the mix. If you do enjoy the new and improved, hopefully, pray to God, sound, leave a like on the video. We will really appreciate that to help spread the word of the best podcast on the internet, because we talk about the best topic, football boots. And today we're going to talk about the big topic, who makes better boots, Nike or ADIDAS. But before we get into that topic, also do remember to tell your friends, if they haven't already, to go subscribe to the channel. Also, if you want to listen to the audio-only version of the Boot Nerds podcast, there's going to be a link in the description right down below if you want to treat your ears only to our crisp voices, in case you don't want to look at my face, which is understandable. But that is also in the description right down below. And yeah, tell people to go subscribe, like the video, all that stuff. Should we get into it?
And if you have any questions that you'd like us to answer, please leave those questions down below in the comments, and we might answer it in the next video.
Absolutely. But okay, before we get going here, Josh, I can't help but notice that you have joined the J Gang.
Let me back up so I can show you guys this.
Like, for you guys who can't see right now, Josh is basically wearing my face on a t-shirt on on his body, which is like super meta, but also very, very cool. But the thing is that for those of you who don't know, at Unisport, we've made these t-shirts with myself, with Jolter, and with PWG. And then we kind of have this little thing going on to see who is the most popular. And thing is, it's not going very well for me. So I need a bit of help for you guys out there. You know, the loyal boot nerds out there. This is the time to assemble. So what I've done to make sure that we can actually you know, show that the J is not completely lost. I've lowered the price for the t-shirt. So now it is available for a mere 14 euros. So what I'm going to do here, if you buy a t-shirt and you let us know in the comments, I'm going to shout every single one of you out on my Instagram. Potentially, if we win, also in the Boot Nerds podcast, who knows? I'm feeling generous. So let's go out in force and show Jolter and PWG that the Boot Nerds are united, and that we won't do like Man United and fail miserably. Shameless plug, I know, but you know, just want to put it out there.
If we don't win this competition, this will be the last episode of the Boot Nerds podcast.
I just gotta say, look, it's come this far that Josh has actually voluntarily, without too much pressure from myself, put on my face on a t-shirt. I mean, this is important, guys. So just a little bit of a plug here. Obviously, there's going to be a link on a pop-up on the screen, in the description, all that stuff. So help a brother out, help a boot nerd out, and let's go beat the other boys.
Cool.
Shall we?
And I was not paid to say this, but it's probably the greatest t-shirt I've ever owned.
Without a shade of a doubt, absolutely. With that said, it's actually a nice t-shirt. It's a decent t-shirt, but yeah, 14 euros. It's awesome.
Bargain.
So, with that said, the big topic of the day, Adidas versus Nike. Who makes the best boots?
Right now.
Right now.
Because that's important. There's been a lot of changes with both brands, and more changes coming with Nike, because the new Tiempo is pretty much imminent at this point. But if we're comparing the two brands right now, who do you think takes the win overall? Because that's the favorite question that everyone likes to ask me, at least. I'm sure you get a lot of it as well, is which brand is better, Nike or Adidas?
See, it's a fun question, and I'm just sat here. I've got all the boots right next to me because I think we're gonna basically go through each and every one of them in order to make some sort of sense of this. Because I haven't really decided yet, and I think I'm gonna make up my mind as we talk about this. But if you put a gun to my head and I have to answer you right now, I would probably say that Nike takes it by a small margin. Simply because of the fact that they have more boots that I would be okay with if they were the only boots I should wear the rest of my life.
I think that's fair. I think it's fair to say that both brands right now offer a solid amount of variety. Nike a little bit more variety than Adidas, I would say. But I think you're right. Across the board, Nike is probably more consistent in terms of the level of their boots.
And on the other hand, I think Adidas have been very, very good at making a lot of boots, all of them which are decent to very good, giving you both a laceless option and a laced up version, which means that they have like the plus price point and they have the 0.1 price point, both of which are top tier boots. Right? So with Nike, for Mercurial, you get the Superfly for the Vapor, but for the other boots, the Tiempo, the Venoms, and the Visions, you only get the top tier model, and then it's the Pro version. Not that the Pro version's bad, but for Adi, there's just, going down a price point, it gives you more value for money. So I'm struggling a little bit. Is this going to be a question about who makes the best boots, or is it going to be who makes the best boots, value for money wise, quality wise, over a broader spectrum? I think it's because it can be a very difficult discussion if we don't narrow this down.
I think it's all of that considered, but I think the best way to talk about this is maybe compare the lines head to head and then almost determine a winner from there, and then I guess have a score at the end to figure it out. You know what I'm saying?
Fair enough. Fair enough, yes.
So let's start with probably the two most popular lines from both, the Mercurial line from Nike and the X line from Adidas, the speed boots, if you will, because clearly those boots will make you faster. Everyone knows this.
Absolutely. And you'll also get a better touch in the ball because one of the boots have ACC and the other has nothing, so it's the same. But you didn't catch that. I basically gave you...
I caught it.
Wow.
Jay,
you're a really difficult man to...
I am on board with everything you say. I'm wearing your face on my shirt right now.
This is the greatest day of my life, honestly. No, but if we look at the X and the Mercurial, I mean, for me, these are two of the strongest boots in the lineup. If we consider mass appeal, I'm not saying these are the two boots I'd most likely wear. But I think this is probably what most people would point to and say, this is what I want based on a shelf view. Yeah. They look fast, they're made for speed, and actually they're both very decent boots. They're pretty similar. Don't weigh too much. I think both are around 190 grams something. Actually, the X is lighter. I think it's around 190 grams.
Yeah, the weight difference is minimal between the two. Whether you go with the laceless or the 19.1, they're pretty well all about the same weight. So I don't think weight is a deciding factor. When you're talking about responsiveness, I guess you do lose out on that with the laceless X19 Plus. Just simply based on not having... I don't want to say true lockdown, but I do want to say true lockdown because there really isn't anything that's forcing your foot into the boot.
Other than the boot being really, really tight. With that said, you got to give some props to the X19 Plus because I feel it has better lockdown than it's supposed to. It feels better on my foot when I'm changing direction than I expect it to for some weird reason. Maybe it's because there's so little space to move around inside the boot. But I, It's one of the best boots out there, I feel, for lockdown after the COPA 19 Plus of the laceless boots.
If laceless.
Right now.
But given I think it's fair to say that if ultimate responsiveness in lockdown is what you're after, the 19.1 over the Plus is the one to have.
Absolutely,
For sure.
absolutely. But you know, if we put these two head to head, I think they give you much of the same. Both have thin uppers. Both have uppers that are very soft and pliable, and you know, they have a good amount of texture on the ball. Vapors and Mercurials in general are perhaps slightly grippier, simply because of the fact that the texture is a little bit more aggressive. But on the ball, I don't think it matters too much. I like both outsoles, both toolings. Think the Mercurial one is a little bit more aggressive, which I personally enjoy. But also, I can appreciate what the X does, and of course, I like the anatomical outsole on the Mercurial. It doesn't really matter that the X doesn't have it, but it feels a little bit more connected to the boot somehow. For me, the Mercurials, especially the Vapor, edges it over the X simply just because of the fact that it feels a little bit more nimble than the X, but it's a very, very close call for me.
Yeah, I think you're right in that if you're just judging the boots on objective performance characteristics, the Mercurial does beat out both of the top-end X models. But with that said, I actually prefer, if I was picking any boot to wear from the two lines, I really like the X19.1.
Same. I think it's a fantastic boot. And some people will simply like it based on the fact that it's a little wider than the Mercurial Vapor 12. And also the fit is slightly different. So if you don't like the super low-cut, very tight-fitting sensation of the Vapor, maybe the X19.1 is a little bit more for you. I would, you know, this is going to be a narrow win for the Mercurial, but in the grand scheme of things, I'd probably call it a tie, honestly.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that it's a tie right now. As crazy as that sounds, but the little modifications they made from X18 to X19
yeah,
really kind of close the gap between Mercurial and X for me.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely. And yes, I will still choose the Vapor 12 over the X19.1, but this is like my personal preference, and I do appreciate, this is why I'm going to say it's a tie. I think there will be as many people preferring the 19.1 over the Mercurial because what I talked about earlier with the fit and you know, that's really difficult to judge for me.
Yeah. Okay. Next line. Which ones? You got the boots there. I'll let you sort yourself out.
Predator and Phantom Vision?
So are we calling, I guess the Predator is now a control boot rather than a power boot? Is that what we're doing now?
I guess, yeah. I mean, wouldn't it be the most natural thing to compare the Preds and the Visions?
I think it makes sense because the Ace line was competing against Magista, and those are basically the successors to both of those. So
yeah, that's true. And I think this is going to be a little bit of an interesting discussion because, as you guys, you know, the faithful boot nerds, viewers and listeners out there will know, I'm a little bit against the Visions. I don't hate them, I just don't love them either. And I quite like the Predators, although I think they could and should be better. But I'm really interested in hearing your take on the, like, this is a bit of a mix between obviously grip, control, and to some extent also comfort.
Yeah.
So what do we say?
I guess the best way to compare them is in terms of objective performance characteristics. So they're both knitted uppers. Yes. I think you can make the argument that the upper of the Predator maybe feels a little bit softer just because it has a more padded sensation to it. So not a lot separates the two in terms of touch on the ball. I'd say they're both pretty solid.
I think what would, you know, splitting them apart, the Pred feels a little more dampened and padded and elegant, whereas the Vision, it has a thinner upper, so you do feel more of the ball. It also has more grip, at least to me. So it does feel more, should we say, sticky on the ball compared to the Preds. So there's that's really something that separates it for me, but I'm finding it hard to judge what's better, really.
Right. And then the other thing I think when you're talking about general lockdown and responsiveness, while the Predator 19.1 is not bad, but the Vision pretty much runs away in that category, I would say.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. This is one of the things that I feel the Vision does very, very well, is lockdown. The whole quad fit mesh thing, somehow I feel like it's working, and yet I feel it could be working better. But there's no denying that the lockdown in this boot is really, really good, and you can really adjust it to your foot the way you want to. Very nice.
It's a weird lockdown sensation though, because the actual lockdown element is soft and flexible, basically feels like a knitted upper, but somehow when you tie the laces tight, it just manages to hold really well without really squeezing your feet. Because traditionally when you get a super tight responsive feel, the tightness comes along with that, and you just don't have that tightness with the Vision. And obviously you have a little bit more of a narrow foot, so you find that maybe the fit's not great for you. But there's no denying that technology legitimately does work in a world of football boot technologies that are ultimately very gimmicky, right? So responsiveness, no question. Weight, the Vision is just a lot lighter. There's a big difference between the two.
Yes. For me personally, I'd say that comfort-wise, I prefer the Preds, especially if you go off half a size, where it's actually, you know, bearable to wear, because otherwise it's really, really tight. But it feels super, super soft and very plush and padded and lovely around your foot. And it actually makes me feel, you know, there's this thing that just makes me feel more elegant when I'm wearing the Preds compared to the Visions. And also because there's this, like, the sock. It's just... It's just such a low quality sock. I don't understand it, because I think I'd actually like the boot a lot more if it wasn't there.
Yeah. It's a weird thing for them to include on what is basically just a low cut design, but
which do you feel is better? Which boot do you like more?
I much prefer the Vision. The last category to talk about would be traction, and again, I feel like the Vision just beats out the Predator in terms of overall traction. The Predator is a great boot, whether you go for the laceless one or the 19.1. I feel like the 19.1 is probably the better overall variation.
Better overall, yeah.
But there's the Predator is one of those boots where it's a solid product, but there's nothing about it that really stands out to me as being really unique or interesting, or there's nothing redeeming about the boot that to me makes it jump out in comparison to everything else.
I think that's a fair assessment, and for that, I'm probably gonna agree to letting the Vision take this one. It pains me to say, because I personally like the Pred more, but from an objective standpoint, I think the Vision offers a little bit more.
Yeah,
simple as that.
Yeah, the Predator is a lot better looking, though. I'll give it that.
Oh, that's not even a contest. And to some people that matters, but I mean, we don't really care that much. It's mostly about how it feels on foot. So yeah, let's give that to the Vision.
Cool. All right, COPA and Tiempo. This is another tricky one.
See, this is going to be interesting. I think, again, everyone out there will know what I feel. But I'm very interested to hear what you think, because historically, you've really loved the Tiempo, right?
Yeah, I have. And I think over time, I've liked it a little bit less. But at the same time, it's a tough boot for me to criticize, just because the one thing that I think you can make the argument where the Tiempo is lacking is that it maybe doesn't have the most incredible leather touch on the ball for being a leather boot. Not to say that it's bad, not to say that the leather quality is bad, but when you compare it to something like the COPA 19 Plus or a made in Japan Mizuno boot or some of the truly world-class leather boots out there, I would even go as far as say the Nike Premier 2 offers a nicer leather feel than what you get on the Tiempo. Something about the added layers and amount of elements they've included on the boot, while it makes for tons of responsiveness and really a leather boot that performs in such a way that a leather boot shouldn't be able to perform, it does take away from the specialness of just pure leather on its own.
I think that's very fair. And for me, the Tiempo Legend 7 Elite is just, it's a great overall boot. There's not really anything where you can go in and completely criticize it and say I hate it because of that. I do agree with you that the leather is a little on the thin side and somehow feels more like a leatherized synthetic for some weird reason. And again, I like the fit. It's comfortable. It's fairly responsive. And it's just an overall decent boot. The whole Flyknit element, while I don't think it's necessary. I do enjoy it. I don't hate it. The heel lockdown is nice. Traction is all right. The whole last they've made it on fits most feet very well. And it's just a sleek, comfortable boot with a nice touch. But when it comes up against the COPA 19 Plus, and this is where I feel the Tiempo Legend 7 is falling behind, is that you get all of that with the COPA and then some. I mean, this is actually something that takes leather boots to the next level. It goes in with it's actually a relatively thin leather upper, but it's just been made so it's so plush and padded and slipper-like and comfortable, and it just feels like leather should. You can even hear it when you touch it, that it has the tactile sensation that a leather boot should have, with the same spongy response you get when you squeeze the material. For me, the fit, the lockdown, which is good in this, the whole execution of how they merged and fused the knit and the leather itself without you being able to see anything visual. The outsole could be whatever. I don't really care for that much. But there's just something about this boot that has the X factor to me, which the Legend 7 doesn't have.
I agree with you in saying that the COPA 19 Plus is a very special boot in terms of the experience it has on offer. If you buy a pair of COPA 19 Pluses, it's not going to feel like anything you've ever had before, which sometimes can be a bad thing, but in this case, I would say it's a very good thing. I'd also go as far as say that it's probably the best laceless boot Adidas has ever made.
By far,
the fit is remarkably good, but I guess when you're comparing it to the Tiempo, again, I'm going to circle back to objective performance. It's not as light. The traction is not as aggressive. The lockdown and responsiveness is not as good. It does win in terms of touch. I don't think it's even close. I think it's just a better overall experience in terms of touch on the ball. But that's really the only category where I can say it's a clear winner over the Tiempo. But that is also the most important category for this style of football boot. So it gets a lot of bonus points simply for being as special as it is when it comes to overall feel.
I think that's a fair point, and maybe the Tiempo is. Okay, I think I've gathered my thoughts on this. I like the Tiempo, and I think you're right in saying that it probably hits more categories and wins more categories in terms of what a boot should typically give you if it was a synthetic boot or any other type of football boot. But since we're talking modern leather boots, it should give you, for me, the leather touch, the elegance, have this little bit of something that makes you feel like you're so elegant and classy when you're on the ball. And also, comfort. It really needs to feel like it's a slipper around your foot. And while the Legend 7 isn't uncomfortable for me, there's just something inexplicable about is that a word? Unexplainable?
That is a word. You're good.
Wow, okay. English. No Mimi, no speak. Anyways, it's just, it has an edge, the COPA. It has that little extra wow factor when you put it on. The upper really sits so tightly around your foot. It caresses your foot. And I feel the Legend 7, for all its nice traits, doesn't really do that. This doesn't feel exclusive and premium and like it's that butler that goes the extra mile to make you feel happy. To me, the COPA is that boot, and this is what this kind of this category calls for.
Yeah, you're right.
Does it make sense?
No, you're right. It has the X factor. Oh,
I got it. I got it. It took a while, but I got it. I appreciate it.
You're right. You're right in saying that the Tiempo has fallen behind in regards to just the specialness of the boot. When it first came out, I don't think there was any denying that it was the best modern leather boot on the market right now. And it arguably still is, depending on what you really value in a pair of football boots. It's got all the modern elements, but the leather boot experience has been compromised to a certain extent because of all the elements it incorporates. While the COPA 19 Plus is also a very modern interpretation of a leather boot, but unlike so many new concepts and new boots that we get these days, it's one of very few that actually manages to give you something unique, but also very positive at the same time. So while I do think it is lacking in a lot of performance categories versus the Tiempo, I will agree with you that right now, not to say that it's better, but in this category, I think it's more special and therefore does deserve the win.
I agree. That's a fair assessment. For me, it's just better, but different people, different preferences.
Yeah, it depends. Credit to the COPA 19 Plus. It's the first laceless boot that I've put on my feet and played in and thought, hey, I'd be happy to wear these for the whole season and it wouldn't be driving me crazy.
And for me, it's the same. It's actually the first laceless boot that I prefer over the 0.1s.
Yeah, I guess we should comment on the COPA 19-1.
Not my cup of tea. Had it been made without the burrito-style tongue, I would have loved it, but I don't care for that. So
make it a regular central lacing system with a leather tongue, and the boot would have been really good, or a lot better at least.
But what I had hoped for when I saw it was that, you know, they'd have this Tiempo Legend 7 kind of construction, Mizuno Repula 2 kind of construction. So it's a little bit, sorry, wrong boot. It's a little bit like this, but just with an actual, you know, separated knitted tongue piece and laces. And we would have had a flipping winner.
Yeah, but you know what? You know what we could say about the COPA 19-1 is it's basically everything that we said is lacking with the Tiempo, right? Because it's more like the Tiempo in that the lockdown's a lot better. The responsiveness is a lot better. The overall performance characteristics of the boot are better. You could argue maybe it's not as comfortable as the laceless model, but again, because of what they've done with that design, it takes away from that X factor that makes the COPA 19 Plus so special.
Exactly. And if they hadn't had the burrito style tongue, I think this would have been a seriously killer boot. But that's the way it goes. That's the way it goes. Okay, so COPA wins that one. Agreed?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, moving on to the final category here. And
we're tied up at this point.
I think we're tied up at this point, yeah. So this one is going to decide, and it's the newest boot from both brands. Right here, right now. The Nemesis, that took a while to find. Nemesis 19 Plus and the Hyper Venom, wow, Jay. The Phantom Venom Elite from Nike. Basically the Hyper Venom 4, if you ask some people, but this is the Phantom Venom Elite. Both boots have been made, and I think it might not be completely fair to compare these, but they still aim for that winger, striker, agile, finisher type player, right?
I would classify this as kind of the wild card spot in both brands' lineups, where they kind of use this line almost for the sake of experimentation. If that's fair to say, because I think it's tough to say that they are comparable boots in almost any way at all. Maybe the Nemesis 19.1 a little bit more so, based on just the fact that it fits better and has laces and is just more normal overall. Because the Nemesis 19 Plus is a little bit of a weird boot.
It's super weird, man. It's not a bad boot. It's just a little bit weird.
Yeah,
some people will really like it.
So I think
that's fair.
I think in order to do this comparison properly, we're just going to take the 19 Plus out of the running, because it just in comparison to the Venom, it's no competition.
No, I agree.
And a funny comment I just wanted to bring up about that boot, because I did my review, I don't know, probably a week ago now at this point by the time this goes up, but I had a few people commenting on basically ways Adidas could improve the lockdown on the Nemesis 19 Plus. And
okay, I'm very intrigued to hear that.
Right? It has the crisscrossing tension tape, and then it has that internal band that basically just runs across the top of the foot from either edge of the top of the internal liner, right? So it's not really a true wrap around the midfoot or the ankle area. It's just a crossband basically, right?
Yeah.
And it seems like a good idea, but when you actually try the boots on, it doesn't really do that much.
No.
Right? And my thing with that boot when I put it on, it's not that it feels bulky in any way at all, but it does really give you the sensation of, hey, there's a lot going on across the top of my foot, maybe a little bit more so than I would like for there to be there. And a lot of people were suggesting, why don't they just do more of those internal cross bands and just add more bands in general for the sake of lockdown? And I understand why people would think that's logical, but think about it. You already have like 3 or 4 layers of overlapping materials across the top of your foot. Do you want to add 5 or 6 or 7 layers in order to have proper lockdown? Like, there's got to be a certain point where it's like, let's just put laces in the boot and call it a day.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fair point, and you know, not a bad point. And kudos to your followers for suggesting. Me no speak. I can't say that word. Suggesting that. That's a fair point. But as you say, it will also really bulk up the whole construction of the boot, and I don't think it would work that well because it would just feel chunky. And it would be even harder to put on and have the, you know, all the little tape bands, individual tape bands would crinkle up, and I don't think it would work.
Right. And I don't want to come across as hating on the Nemesis 19 Plus. And I don't think you do either. Because I genuinely like what Adidas tried to do. They took their wrapping concept that they introduced with the Nemesis, and they really kind of took it to the extreme. Is it a little bit gimmicky? Yeah, but they legitimately built a football boot in such a way that we had never seen before. Kind of like the COPA 19 Plus.
Yes, and it is very special, a little bit, you know, a little rascal. I enjoy that for what it is, and they are taking chances, and you got to give them respect and kudos for that. Not the boot for me, but I do enjoy the very seamless fit, the close touch on the ball. It's just not maybe the boot for me. And that's how it goes. Yeah. But I see why people would enjoy it. Yeah,
it's a little bit quirky.
It is. But that's the thing. Most of the big stars are a little bit quirky, right? Just look at you. And
look
the
at this guy on my shirt. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, such a humble guy. Goes and puts his face in the t-shirt. So, anyways, back to the discussion here. Phantom Venom versus Nemesis 19.1. If we look at it objectively again, you could argue that both boots are decently comfortable once you at least break in the Nemesis and this one. Phantom Venom is perhaps a little bit more on the comfy side from the get-go, but I think the Nemesis 19.1 really does a good job once you break it in. I'd say lockdown-wise, Phantom Venom slightly edges it, but for me, they feel kind of similar. On the striking side of things, I like what Nemesis 19.1 does with the really, really barefoot-like, very sharp sensation on the ball. There's not much in the way, but on the other hand, that pingy sensation you get from the Phantom Venom probably takes it home from me. Traction-wise, it's a tough one because both of them are... Well, they want to go in different directions, right? Phantom Venom, very, very aggressive. Something I personally appreciate, but I think for most people, perhaps the Nemesis one with the more rounded studs is a more, should we say, rounded general option for most people out there. So I would probably argue that the Nemesis wins this one. As for comfort, in general, I could wear both. Fit, I could wear both. I'd probably take the Venoms though.
The Nemesis 19.1 was a really nice surprise because I didn't expect too much out of it. I almost feel like up until this point, the 0.1 model in the Nemesis line was, I don't want to say an afterthought, but it seems like they kind of just like focused all their attention on the laceless model and then just threw some laces on the boot and called it a 0.1 and somehow charged everyone $50 less, which never made any sense to me. Either way, it
was always the better boot, though.
It was always the better boot. Yeah, always the better boot, and it still is the better boot, I would argue. And I think what's great about the 19.1 is that it really fixed all of most of my gripes that I had with the Nemesis 17.1 and the 18.1. It lowers the annoying high back that you had on those two models, which I think is more comfortable. I think the tweaked shape is a lot better. They lowered the volume. It fits a little bit more close to your foot. It's a lot better than it used to be. The upper, I always felt like the Nemesis upper, because of the tape concept, it made this upper feel very kind of blocky, where you had such like the it was like almost divided into thirds, and you had like 3 different types of materials and feels. So depending on where you made contact with the ball, it was very inconsistent. That's completely gone now, given that the entire boot is now made out of tension tape. And because of the wider bands they're using, you have less seams on the upper as well, which I think is a very good thing because you really don't notice the seams anymore. The responsiveness is better because of the fit, I would say. And then the split sole gives it a little bit of a different feel, slightly more Mercurial-esque, I think is probably the best comparison to make as far as sole plates go.
I think it doesn't matter one bit. I don't feel a difference, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, not at all.
I feel like it's a little bit stiffer. And I mean, the stud pattern, I'm not going to give any credit to Adidas on the stud pattern because it's the same stud pattern they've been doing. They just change the shape of the studs. It's good. It works. But Adidas, it's been 10 years. Let's do something a little bit different at this point. And the one area where they took a little bit of a step back is the weight. It's heavier than it was before, mainly due to that split sole construction. So when you compare it to something like the Phantom Venom, as good as it is, I almost look at the Nemesis 19.1, and while I really like it, it's like, why do I pick this over the X? Right? That's kind of, it's almost like they have like a Speed Boot 2 line rather than an agility line. Because the agility thing just, I don't know, it never really made a lot of sense to me.
I'm totally with you on this one, and this is also what we talked about last time when we compared the Nemesis and the X. That this feels like what you'd go to if you don't like the look of the X19 or 19.1. It's a different boot, it's a different style, it's a different set of materials, but ultimately, the feeling you get. It's a relatively light boot, thin materials, decent fit, solid lockdown, low profile both in the heel and the toe box. Decent outsole, very stiff, pretty responsive. I mean, they're the same traits that you get in both boots, and then it's of course a matter of preference. I would say that for this one, I actually thought that the Phantom Venoms here, when I look at the construction, right. It reminds me a little bit of what we saw on especially the Nemesis 17 and 18.1 because we have a like slightly textured toe, especially as we also saw on the Nemesis 17.1. So a textured toe box, very soft, and then we have a midfoot that is where there's a lot going on. We saw the bands going on the Nemesis 17.1. Here we have the 3D striking elements. We have the semi-covered lace cover or whatever we call it. That is just there for no reason whatsoever. And then we have, a standard knit, thick foam liner, silicone construction in the heel with a very solid fit, admittedly. More or less, the same type of materials, more or less the same, construction idea as we saw on the Nemesis 17.1. It's just, for me, a lot better executed. And this is why it's interesting that this has developed so much, and the Phantom Venom, while I do think it's a more enjoyable boot to play with, it hasn't exactly revolutionized or gone to such lengths as the Nemesis to reinvent itself, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's actually Nike reintroducing a concept that used to be very popular, and that I think it's fair to say that that's really the only power boot on the market right now, even though it's a far stretch from any of the old Predators or T90 models. I guess if we're comparing it to any old power boot, if you could even call them power boots at that point, it's the Predator LZ concept. It is kind of what that reminds me of a little bit, in that you get the feel of the striking element. There's definitely some additional grip. But as a whole, it's a well put together boot. It's lightweight. It has aggressive traction. It fits really well. It's responsive. It's another one of those products that Nike's very good at this, is that they make a boot that is not really technically flawed in any significant way, but you can make the argument that there's nothing that unique or special about the way that it feels. But ultimately, it performs really well. And I actually feel like the Phantom Venom, even though I just said there's nothing that special about it, I kind of think it might be their best boot at the moment.
I tend to agree with you. There's just, the fit is just special, and you feel on your toes. It's nice and comfortable. There's a solid connection on the ball, both when you dribble and when you strike it. Good traction, very aggressive, low weight, no discomfort whatsoever. I'm having a hard time putting a finger down and saying I don't like this about the boot. For me, it's a very close race between this and the Mercurial Vapor 12. And for that reason alone, I can't see past this. I really like the Nemesis 19.1, but I just can't see past the Venoms.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a huge compliment to Adidas for taking a line that has kind of been dead for 2 years. And the fact that we're even comparing it at all to the Venom and saying that it's on that same level, because it is legitimately on that same level, but it's just one of those boots that, again, I almost feel like what's special enough about it to pick it over other options.
And with that said, I would happily go out and wear these for any match or training day. I wouldn't care, and I would feel light on my feet. I would feel comfortable. I would have a good, solid, slightly grippy touch on the ball, good connection, all that stuff. No complaints. I just feel that it's edged out by the completeness of the Phantom Venoms.
Yeah, the Venom just head to head with that is a better boot. But I would say that, for me at least, maybe I have a different opinion, I think Nemesis 19.1 is top 3 within the Adidas brand right now.
Yeah.
For me,
that's not fair. I'd say top 3 or 4. Probably.
Yeah. Top 4 if you're a fan of the Predator. I'm not a fan of the Predator, though.
I was actually gonna say the X 19.1. Obviously, the Copa 19 Plus is my favorite. X 19.1, and then it's a close race for me between the X 19 Plus and the Nemesis 19.1. But I'm probably gonna go Nemesis. Yeah, you're right. Top 3.
That was my logic there. So
yeah.
So if we give the win to the Venom, that makes Venom wins a category.
Yeah.
COPA wins a category.
Vision.
We gave the Vision. See, that's kind of like, those are two kind of like Nemesis and Venom. The Predator and the Vision they're very similar on paper, but different, very different in terms of overall feel.
Yeah.
And then I think it's fair to say you could maybe give the edge to Mercurial, but I think the X line right now is legitimately that good. So it's a tie there. So if we want to, let's cancel out the tie, then it's 2-1 in favor of Nike as we've scored it technically. Yep. But it's not a runaway 2-1.
See, that's the thing. And I actually feel that especially, if we say that the Vision is the tiebreaker here, this is the one that makes the difference. For me, I'd probably go Predator, which would mean that Adi would win the whole thing, right?
Yeah, it's a 2-1. It's a 2-1 where it was like 1-1 the whole match, and then you get a corner kick, and for some reason the team's not paying attention, and you play it in the box and score, and the game's over.
Yeah, Trent Alexander-Arnold. I mean, I'm down with that. As I said in the intro, I felt like Nike had some sort of slight edge. Maybe because I really like the Mercurial, I really like the Phantom Venoms. Tiempos are decent, and Visions, I don't care much for them. And I really like X, Copa. Predators are okay, and Nemesis is like, whichever model you decide to go with might be meh or actually pretty decent. So what my conclusion is that no matter which boot you go for, you're gonna get top quality, great fit, and you basically can't do wrong at the moment in time with any of the boots, bar the Phantom Vision, for me.
I think the key to this is that we're making this argument right now, post Nemesis and X19. If we did this argument with the Nemesis 18 and the X18,
would have been a landslide.
I think Nike's the winner. But Adidas has really made a big step. I know the X19 doesn't look like much, but it's legitimately a solid upgrade over what we had before. And the X18 generation boots, plus maybe not so much, but the X18.1 is a legitimately very, very good product. Good boot, And then the jump the Nemesis made, not I wouldn't say so much with the Plus, more so with the 0.1. It's a big jump.
I think the Plus is also a big jump. Very, very big jump. For me, at least. It just feels so much less bulky and chunky, and it feels nicer, sleeker, more comfortable, a little bit more connected to the ball, and everything I wanted the 18 Plus to be. That's what I get from the 19 Plus.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's a better overall design, but maybe it's my foot, but I just had better lockdown. My foot seems to be held in place much better in the 18 Plus versus the 19 Plus.
Maybe it's because the 18 Plus upper material was thicker, and thus it hugged your foot closer, left less space inside the boot to actually hold your foot in place. Could be the factor.
Yeah, but you're gonna have that with laceless boots. You're just gonna have that. Like you could really want the Predator, but the Predator might not be the boot that fits you. So
yes, and this is another compelling argument for Adidas, is that they give you the laceless option, in which case, when you compare it with Nike, Nike will probably win in most categories, bar potentially the leather category, where it's beaten by a laceless boot. But if you don't like the laceless boot, all of the laced up versions, the 0.1 versions, they actually go toe-to-toe with most of Nike's models, their top models, where they can't offer an alternative, if you know what I mean. So for me, that's a very strong point for Adidas, is that they have the choice for you to make. If you don't like laceless, you'd rather have the Nike boot, well, you can look at the laced up version and actually have a really good alternative, very competitive alternative from Adidas.
Yeah, I mean, you could look at it. You could look at it that way. I agree with you, where it's like, oh yeah, they're offering more options. That's great. But then you could also look at it from the perspective where I think we can agree in every single line from Adidas, when you're comparing the Plus and the 0.1 model, there's always one that's clearly better than the other. There's really not. Maybe you could make the argument for the Predator that the Plus and the 0.1 are on the same level, depending on what you like. But it's that's my only issue with the extra option from Adidas, is it's like, yeah, the Nemesis is really good, but you really want the 0.1. Yeah, the COPA is really good, but you really want the Plus. You know, if you've tried all of the boots, I think there's a clear winner in each of the lines. And I kind of do applaud Nike a little bit for kind of getting away from doing that like 1A, 1B type thing. Because while it was great to have the extra options, there was always that one boot that just ended up being better than the other one.
Fair.
You know?
Yeah.
I think the thing that separates the two brands right now is Nike, while they have introduced some pretty revolutionary stuff in the past, and the past, I guess, would be 2014 would be the past. So 5 years ago now. In the last 5 years, we haven't seen them take any huge risks. They've kind of more or less played it safe, but they're putting out really solid products. Like they're hard to criticize. They might lack a little bit of that X factor because they're not really something that we haven't seen before, but they're good. Where Adidas is like, hey, we have this crazy idea. Let's just do it. Maybe it'll be great. Maybe it won't. And I kind of like that. You end up with more gimmicky stuff that way, but you also end up with stuff like the COPA 19 Plus that I feel is a product that Nike would never try to make something like that.
No. And for me, you know, as you say, Adidas have just taken more risks, right? Nemesis, big risk. COPA, massive risk, but it just is one of the best boots on the market for me. You could argue the Predator was also a rather big risk given the hate it got when it came back and people went out and said, oh, this is not my Predator, all that stuff. X, okay, is not necessarily a risk, but it's always difficult going up against the Mercurial, right? But at least 3 big risks taken by Adi, most of which have paid off rather well.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's close it down. I'd actually say, you know what, Nike might be edging it, but I'm actually prepared to say right now it's a tie. I'm having a hard time choosing a brand I prefer over the other. I don't
want to do that. That's a cop out. We've copped out. We've copped out on every list we've made in this podcast. We can't cop out on this one.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm gonna give the win to Nike simply based on the fact that if you put all their top end boots on the floor and take all the top end boots from Adidas, I'd be more happy to wear, if I was forced to wear one of each of the top end boots every single time that I played, let's say I had to rotate through the whole line, I'd be more happy to wear the Nike boots across the board than the Adidas boots across the board. Because there's just more within the Adidas brand while they make some stuff. Their highs are very high, but their lows are low. Nike's more even across the board.
Yeah. I'd probably also give it Nike then if I have to, simply because of the Mercurial and the Phantom Venom. I feel that they are so good and so unique, and I still love my Mercurials. So that would probably be the reason I give it to Nike. I think Adi deserve it because of the X line and the COPA 19 Plus, and the fact that Nike for me aren't performing on the Phantom Vision at all. So I'll give it Nike now that we have to, and we don't want to cop out again. but it's a tough one for me. I'm actually really down. Do I want? Nah, it's okay. Let's say Nike.
We'll do it again. We'll do it again in 6 months.
No, I want to say Adi too. Anyways,
and it'll be episode 55 by that point.
Okay, that sounds
just
fair.
Guessing.
I think actually we've run our course for today. We don't have time for any questions, which means that we will do a lot of questions in the next episode. We promise you that. Now, don't forget, of course, that if you have an interest in hearing what Josh has to say about all the latest products when they arrive, the top-end models, the low-end models, everything, and see some funny jokes here and there in between, go and subscribe to his channel. It's right over there. You can click the bubble. It's going to come up, and you should just basically click the bell to get a notification every time he posts a video, so every day. You can also go and follow us at Unisport. We post 4 times a week. We also do fun stuff. We teach you a lot of football skills, review all the latest products, speak to all the biggest stars, all that jazz. Go and subscribe to our channel as well with the notifications on, of course. And finally, do not forget to go and subscribe to the best podcast on YouTube, where we talk about football boots, etc., for more or less 55 minutes to an hour every week. You can watch it on the tube. You can watch it, listen to it on all the podcast channels. All you have to do is click the black subscribe button in the middle, slap on the notifications, and finally, go leave some questions in the comment section right down below so we can answer them for you, because that's what we're here for. And with that said, guys, I think it's time to sign off. I'm JayMike, and I brew this message.
Yeah, I'm Josh, and I just wanted to let you guys know, before you do any of that stuff Jay said, you need to click the link in the description and go buy a JayMike t-shirt, because it's the best.
I also approve that message.
Okay, see you in the next episode, guys. Later.
Bye.